The psychedelic revolution is here. If you want to integrate your visionary experiences into your purpose, get clear on your entrepreneurial path, and help people while you do what you love, then this podcast is for you. Welcome to The Psychedelic Entrepreneur, Medicine for These Times. I'm your host, Beth Weinstein. I'm a spiritual business coach, 3-time entrepreneur, and a lifelong student of psychedelics and sacred plant medicines. You carry your own unique medicine, and your medicine is what we need for these times. This podcast will help you to share your medicine so you can create transformation in the world. Listen in on conversations with psychedelic leaders, changemakers, and conscious entrepreneurs who are living proof that a better world is possible when you follow your heart and live in alignment with your soul. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am so happy to have my friend, peer, and client and former client, Jules Hare, with us today. Hi, Jules. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Beth. Thank you for having me. Thank you for being here really with everyone. Thank you.
So good. So Jules was a client in the group mastermind program that I run in 2022 and into 23. And now she's in a special Moon School program, which is not launched to the public yet. It's a new experimental program. We will see. And Jules is also just an amazing human. And let me tell you about her. So Jules is a playfully wise, intuitive mentor and embodied leadership coach. A natural-born inner intimacy artist, Jules has an amazing ability to awaken you to your inner gifts and unique abilities by facilitating a new and powerful friendship between your mind and body. With over 30 years experience as a cranial sacral therapist, she's spent over 30,000 hours mastering her unique craft, making her a powerful catalyst to help you illuminate your way out of stuck, help you remember your divine purpose, and assist you to embody the soul mission of your divine purpose that you came here for. And you can learn more about Jules right here in the show notes. Click on her link, check out her work. But Jules, let's get into it. I always love to hear the story, especially as one of my clients, where it's like, I know a little bit of your background, but I don't know the deep story. How did you become a body worker, a cranial sacral therapist? Now you've written a book, you do leadership work, you are now combining your body work and your embodiment work into a program for your clients. What brought you onto this path?
Always great questions and big ones too. Thanks, Beth. I was born into a family of, actually, I'm the 6th generation of healers in my family. So my daughter is the 7th. So ancestrally, there's been a line of healers, and I was lucky to have chosen, obviously, depending on what you believe in, but chosen to be born into that family. My mom took the form of a physiotherapist and occupational therapist. And when she discovered cranial sacral therapy, way back when, she knew that it was her path. And so she took all of her courses directly with Dr. John Upledger in Florida or West Palm Beach, Florida, at the Upledger Institute. And she would come home from these courses and excitedly, all of the things that she would share with me and show me how to do them. So inadvertently, I was getting all of these skills as she was learning them, except I was only 10. And so throughout the years and all of the trainings that she did, with John himself, and then later with other teachers. I took my first cranial sacral course when I was 17. I lied and said I was 18, I think, at the time, to take a cranial sacral course because I was so excited. Some people lie to get in the bar, not me.
Lie to drink and get a tattoo.
Right? So I say that I have 30 years experience because I'm 42. So I've been doing it since I was 10, but I would help my mom with clients in our home-based clinic. And so she would call me in after school. I would say hi to the person, and she'd say, do you mind just holding onto their feet and just grounding them while I'm working on their cranial base? And I'd say, yeah, but it's actually something going on in their gallbladder. And so she'd say, okay, well, you anchor the gallbladder, and then we would work in tandem. And so as I grew up, I knew that I wanted to do that work because it just came so intuitively and it was so rewarding and it felt so easy and it was so fun and playful because it was all closing my eyes and like feeling and seeing this world that's alive inside of my hands and just my attention shifting from one place to the other. I changed things. I was like, wow, it doesn't get better than this. Like I haven't experienced anything in the outside world that compares at all to what happens when you give attention to this degree to bodies. So I wasn't sure whether I want to do it with adults or with kids or with babies or pets. But I realized when you start treating pets, you're always treating the parents, like the owner stuff. When you're treating the kids, you're always treating the parents because the parents are projecting their stuff onto their kids. So I had a family-based practice after becoming a massage therapist. I became a family-based practitioner for 20 years in Kitchener, Ontario. And now I am in St. Martin's, New Brunswick, on the Bay of Fundy in Canada, here on the ocean. And my practice has shifted dramatically, but those were my beginnings. And that's how my great love of working with everybody, but especially specializing in pediatrics and craniosacral therapy, and just helping people empower and create these amazing dynamic relationships in their body that they didn't even know could possibly exist. So why would they give attention to them?
I love this so much. Thank you so much for sharing. And, it's interesting when you came to the group mastermind, I remember you had just moved, I think, right? Yeah. And I had worked with body workers before and seen them shift their business from like traditional in-person work to maybe getting into the online space or doing a combination or working with groups or retreats. And it's interesting because it's like, okay, there's a lot of beliefs that body work is only something that can be done with touch. And your work goes so much deeper. I would love to know, like, how has your work gone from just seeing people in person to now? I mean, when I met you, you'd already written a book. You had, talked about embodiment work. You'd had other kind of spiritual, tapped in, intuitive experiences. But yeah, what is it that you've developed over the last, year and a half since being in the program and making all these changes?
Yeah, COVID, just like it has for all of us, has forced a big pivot. For me, I had done some virtual work previous to COVID starting, but as soon as everything shut down and we were told as massage therapists that we were no longer able to treat people, it just felt like a huge hit. Like, what do you mean we can't help the people that we love and have supported for, sometimes generations, right? I've got grandparents and parents and those parents. Like, it's just like, how can you say that you can't help people? And so I was like, something's got to change. And so at that point, and I had a practice with a year waiting list. Anybody who wanted to come in, there was a year waiting list for an appointment because I was so super packed and working with everybody and trying to help everybody. That's what my mom did. That was the role modeling that I had. That was what I thought was supposed to happen just because that's all I knew. So COVID hit and it was a beautiful turning point. Looking back at the time, not so beautiful, but looking back, that was like, I can still help people in a completely different capacity. And I've done it before. What if I just started working with people on the phone and don't give them a receipt as a healthcare practitioner, but you're working on the phone with them and I'm imagining that they're here and I can still feel things when they shift. I can still get their feedback because they're still hearing my voice. I'm still hearing their voice. And when a shift happens, then I register that back and forth. And so people were floored at the amazing potential that had, even better than real life in some ways, because they could lay down in their comfortable place and stay relaxed after the treatment. They didn't have to get up and pay me and drive somewhere. And they could actually like keep integrating that. And that was so beautiful. I was like, this is magical. And so how it led into the program with you, Beth, is that I realized when I moved here, we live in a small fishing village And I mean small, 250 people live in our village. It's a very small fishing village. I was not going to get the number of people through the doors, but I did know that I could get more people if I could work on them virtually. And also, maybe I don't have to just treat everybody. Maybe I could focus my attention and have it be like that light that I've known but never actually embodied, where if you focus on all of the leaders and you can help them transform their reality, then they're going to impact way more people. And so that is going to have way more impact than me just trying to help everybody. That old paradigm is not necessarily my paradigm. That was the past paradigm. And that's when it jumped into your program, Beth. And that is, hey, how can I do this? I've never done this before. I need to be with other people who are wanting to do this so that I have a peer group. But also, I want to be with somebody who can lead these people like I want to lead my people, right? That's where you come in. That's where all of my mastermind peers came in. We're all wanting to step into a new reality, and we don't have the role modeling to know what that looks like or have anybody around us who's doing it, because we're all the leaders in our pods. So we need leadership to get to that next level.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for sharing this. And I love to point this out because there used to be this belief before COVID where people thought like, oh, I'm an acupuncturist, I'm a body worker, I can never start an online business. And I actually used to help people. And I'm like, no, I've seen it before. I've done it before. There's many ways to expand and still be a healer and still help people and maybe even still do a combination of in-person and online or whatever it is. And it was, I knew immediately with COVID, I was like, this is going to be such a great gift for people. And that was actually one of the first people I started helping were like my yoga teachers, my own body workers, my own community of people that were like, what do we do? And I'm like, look, you don't necessarily need people there because it's all energy. We're all connected. When you're tapped in, you're tapped in. And I love this. And I actually really love what you say about leaders. This is something I've been really leaning into, especially the last couple of years, is serving people at this place of you are all here to be leaders. And really, like, to me, anybody that steps into the mastermind is a leader, whether they want to admit it or not. It's like, and we all have to be in this place of like, what is the world that we're co-creating? And like you said, when you're being served at this higher level and really becoming that embodied leader, then you are able to create this domino effect on the planet, which I think is, what we all envision, what we all want. And I've done all these like leadership trainings over the years and done various versions of coaching and leadership. And it's funny because in the end, the most, effective of all of those was the embodiment work. And it wasn't like learning how to have, I'm actually in a workshop now, a program called learning, what is it? The Art of Difficult Conversations, which is great. It's like, it's helpful. But it's like this deeper level, like embodiment work of who you really are, and which, by the way, involves difficult conversations and involves, being in your authenticity. But let's approach it from the aspect that you're coming from, which is, would you say like being best friends with the mind and the body? And then you've also brought into your work play and nature and the ocean and rituals. Let's hear a little bit about that and how it plays into this deeper work of leadership and embodiment.
Yeah. So, and I love how this interplays, because it was just this morning that a past coaching client of mine, so as a mentor and as a coach, I reached out, thought of her, and she reached out to me, of course, before I got to reach out to her, because we're all connected like that. And she had said today, she said, one of my coaches, because now she has a business coach, she said, one of my coaches said to me, Jules, and I need to share this with you, that she could feel that my mind and body work so beautifully together. And she said, I thought you needed to know that, because that's something that was not working for her when we first connected. And that was the work that we did to get her to this place where she is a huge leader and she's going to make huge impacts in the world, and already is, of course. But she said, you need to know that because you helped me get to that place. And I've heard this continuously, and for whatever reason during this interesting period of time that we're in when we're doing this interview, it came out just the other day. Another person I had mentored, probably started mentoring like 15 years ago as a craniosacral therapist, just randomly reached out and said, Jules, you need to know that you're with me every day of my practice. I asked myself, what would Jules do? And I was like, that is like the biggest compliment anybody could ever give. And just happened to like be delivered. And I just sat with it and recognized that, like you said, Beth, our commitment to being a leader, because we're all leaders, but actually acknowledging and owning that you're a leader and committing to that ownership of being a leader is what makes you a true leader. Because you're going to acknowledge that you make mistakes. You're going to acknowledge that like you're not doing it right all the time and you're continuously learning and practicing. And so my experience of being here on the ocean and going for walks and sharing that on social media and just like, jump into the head of Jules on the beach. And sometimes it's look at the sea urchin. Look at this. And it hasn't been eaten by a seagull yet. So you can see its little like toes and all of the fun stuff. Or I'm having really deep thoughts about my inner child and how she really needs to be held and how I'm continuously pulled away from her, even though I know she's screaming. Right? Like all of the fascinations, as our friend Brian would say, following your fascinations and just sharing them, and how powerful that is to just be yourself and the mind and the body working together. It's been a constant playground for me, but that's what I help people to do is we're so in our heads because the world is continuously throwing. I say it's like information sandstorm. And by the end of the day, it's like you're scraping all the grit of this like information off you and going, oh my goodness, did I really even need any of that? What do I even do with it? Versus the actual integration of, whoa, I heard something that really hit me today. How do I want to register that? Or how does my body need that? And one of the analogies I use that another client of mine and somebody I mentored, her body made it up, but she said I could use it. It was the brain is in the driver's seat and the heart is in the passenger seat. And the brain's like going, okay, we got to go. And the heart's like, but I think like we could look at that over there. Could we go check that out? And he's like, no, we just got to keep going straight, right? We got to be there on time and this is the right time. And when they're able to switch, and not because one is more important than the other, but they each do different things in different roles. So when you allow the heart to be in the driver's seat and the mind to do what it does best, and that is like hold the map and navigate and tell you where things are. But the heart's saying, okay, but we're going to stop here first. Because look at this. There's like this opportunity to connect and be present. And this person needs us. And the brain goes, okay, but only for 5 minutes. Only for 5 minutes. That's fine. So there's a beautiful, and it's kind of jerky at first when you're first getting used to it. But the more and more you lean into it, and over this 6-month program of this coaching program that I created, the graduate students found that like right at just over the halfway mark, they had the most struggle, just like the hero's journey, right? You're like, okay, we fought the dragon and now we're good. And we're going to come back and we're going to tell everybody all about it. And then you almost get there and you're like, oh my goodness, I thought it was done, but there's more. There's more. Oh my gosh, I thought I got through it all. I thought it was done. You go, oh, actually, the hero's journey just keeps continuing itself over and over and over again. But it's the relationships that you've made that allow for that hero's journey to get clearer and clearer and more concise in new ways, so that you have these tools. And that's what that relationship between your mind and body, or your your heart and soul, or whatever you want to describe it as, is it's the beautiful integration between the energy and the matter working together as a team that keeps things going and keeps the growing less jerky. There's going to be still all sorts of big growing pains. There's no doubt about it. We're humans. Yeah. Yes.
Always. I love this analogy. Thank you so much for sharing. This is a great way to put it, because we do need our brain, but too much of our society, as I'm sure many listeners are starting to become aware of or are already aware of, is just everybody's so stuck in their head. And like you said, with the information, it's an area I've been really kind of feeling into lately, is like, wow, there is so much information coming at us. Or available, shall I say. It's like we can choose to engage or not. But even for me, it's like I'll go to post something on social media and then it's like, oh my God, like an avalanche of information that I don't really even need. It's like, yeah, it's kind of entertaining sometimes, but really I get my best information when I go on a hike with nothing. Like that's it, or like I go sit and like stare at the bees or whatever it is. And it's like, well, wait, that's the information that's actually important to me. But then there's like this world we live in. I mean, now I see why people can't get shit done a lot, where I'm like, oh, no wonder people are not getting things done. Everybody's just so distracted because there's just so many avenues for information, which is all head. It's all head based. It doesn't matter if you're watching someone dancing half naked on Instagram, trying to show you an embodiment practice, you're still in your head watching them. And, I want to dive into a little bit of what you say here about, integration, and then also how you take people so I've had cranial sacral before and I love it. I don't even understand how it works, but I have some inkling. But how do you take people from, really feeling a physical body and like the water and the energy into a program where you're walking them through this process to come into their heart and their soul? How do you translate your body work to that? Or how did you translate it for your program that you offer for people?
Yeah. I'm going to take it back to what you were talking about getting your best quote unquote information, or, the gnosis that you get when you're out in nature. And that is that nature is a beautiful reflector. It's like a whole bunch of clear mirrors. And so your own knowing comes alive and bounces off nature and back to you. And then it feels clear and you feel more whole. And there's this sense of like beingness that you can't get in any other way, except if you have a person holding space for you and doing the same thing. So what I will often say with my clients is, your body likes my attention. It loves your attention. So I'm going to use my attention as an amplifier, as a catalyst, but I'm going to bring your attention to what wants your attention, right? And so then I will tell them, I have a stuffed animal. It's the Curious George doll called Bananas. I should have had it right here, but you'll have to use your imagination, everyone.
Remember that? No.
Yeah. And so what I'll do is I'll say, I'm going to put one hand underneath your sacrum, and I'm going to put the other hand right on top of your lower part of your pelvis. And I want you to take a couple of breaths and just breathe into your lower pelvis and just fill your lower pelvis with your awareness, and just notice if any sounds or colors or memories, maybe even words, and just letting yourself be fully present in that space. And as soon as they are physically there, their awareness is dropped into their body, and I'm holding space there as well. It's like a mirror box. And so what they're noticing, they'll tell me what they're noticing, and then I'll just ask a couple more questions. And as I'm doing that, it's kind of like I'm creating more mirrors for them to notice themselves, right? And for their brain to actually have a place to be able to recognize something, but not in a linear way that it's used to playing. Because our thinking logical brain loves to put things in categories and make sense of them and logically orient them, right? And assign meaning and put them in files and then file them away and say, okay, I got that. Wow, perfect. But our body does not store things the way that our cognitive brain processors do. And so if we can actually tune in and lean into that abstract multidimensional nature of the other processor of our being, which is trillions of bits of information per second, that's how our body's storing things. So before I start with somebody, I will always say that if you can just tell me the very first thing that comes up, no matter how ridiculous, it could be a smell or a sound or a color, it could be that all of a sudden you have this weird pulsing in your left big toe, but all you can hear is your grandma's voice saying, don't go in there, don't go in there, don't go in there. You're like, that's really weird. It's like, that's what wants our attention, and we're going to honor whatever shows up. And I know that you would know this as well as lots of the listeners listening to this as far as the psychedelic experience, because a lot of cranial sacral therapy is getting to that level where you're listening at such a depth, where you're in that abstract space that's very similar to psychedelics, right? And that, yeah, it's super powerful in that regard. And I've had treated many people who are psychedelics enthusiasts as well as experts who have said, whoa, like that was just like I was in relationship with a medicine, because you know that channel and it's the same station that your brain clicks to and says, oh, I know what we do here.
I love this. I was actually going to ask you next about the how this could help, people on the medicine path, because I personally, I believe the best form of integration or any kind of therapeutic work you can do in conjunction with psychedelics or microdosing or psychedelic therapy or ceremonial work, doesn't even matter, is the embodiment work. Because number one, it's like you said, our bodies is storing all the energy, all the information. It's in the cellular memory, and it has like the answers to everything. And everybody is looking to the psychedelic to fix a problem or cure the depression or take away the anxiety. But really, like, we have to get to the root, and we have to also be able to integrate it, which all of this is stored in the body. It's not the day you take the mushroom is the day you're feeling better, and then that's it. It's like, in order to create real transformation that lasts, that we can actually get to that place where we don't even need the medicine. The medicine is nice, but it's like all of this is available without it. And over the years, this is the number one, practice. Different forms of body work and somatic work and embodiment work has come up as, what we all need to make the psychedelic experience actually beneficial, and also for the ongoing integration. And personally, and I'm sure you would agree on some level, this is, I believe, is going to be what will change our entire world. Meaning, if we imagine what would happen if all our society was actually more out of our heads and more into our body and just more connected. It's like, maybe we wouldn't treat the earth the way we do, or maybe we could let certain solutions emerge versus just being the cog in the wheel. It's not really feeling. But yeah, what are your views on how this work can help, let's say, psychedelic facilitators or psychedelic, people in the integration world as leaders, and then also people who are just working with psychedelics?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's super powerful work, and instead of it just being about psychedelic, it could be also like any big potent experiences, or peak experiences, as we like to call it in the psychedelic world, right? Is you're taking this oh my gosh, my child and I just had an amazing experience together, and they shared something with me. Oh, I want to hold on to this forever. We have this tendency to go, oh my gosh, that was really amazing, whether it's a psychedelic experience or a really great moment in time and space where it's kind of like it's super concentrated, like a seed. Let's say it's like a seed, because this analogy came as you were talking. I was like, oh, I can't wait to see what comes to this one. So it's like we have this seed, It's got a really, really thick coat on it though, because we really love it. We go, wow, this is a really powerful experience. All of this amazing wisdom erupted. I can't forget this. I got to hold on to it. And so we like encapsulate it. And then it's in our body, but it's like encapsulated. And so in order for it to actually germinate like a seed, in order for it to actually share its wealth of wisdom and richness, we need to actually give it the conditions in which it's ready to grow its roots first. It always grows a root first before it starts growing its sprout. And so it's like a lot of people will have a psychedelic experience. They go on an ayahuasca journey, or, they take mushrooms. They have this amazing, amazing experience, but it's just there and it's held frozen in time and space. And it's just stuck in there. And so if we actually keep giving it the conditions in which it can thrive and grow, then it will start to actually take root and into the soil of your being. If there's lots of different roots and they're all connecting, we know how beautiful the mycelium is underneath the ground and how it all connects. And just think of that like beautiful, active, connective tissue fiber inside of you, connecting all of these beautiful wisdoms that you've gained, instead of just a whole bunch of landmines that have been dropped in there, hoping that maybe something will trigger a connection that'll be able to activate one over here and one over here. And so it is almost like that when I go into the body. Some bodies are like primed and ready, where it could just be like one session and their body is like, oh, finally somebody's listening. We've got this and we got this and we got this. And if we could just connect them all and just make them think of this or ask them about that. And their body is like super loud and it knows exactly what it needs. And all I need to do is just listen deeply and say, your body is saying something about wanting to be alone, but not having the time or the space. What is that? What's coming up there for you? And they're like, oh my goodness. When I was a kid, I felt like I just needed to be alone, but I could never I have dreams about not being able to find the space to be alone. It's like, okay, there's something important there. I'm just going to hold on to your head and your tail. And if you can just lean into whatever it is your body wants you to notice about that. And it really is just about holding space. We very rarely are present inside of our bodies to just listen and be without some sort of expectation or criticism, etc. Right? So actually holding the space for them to be there, and so for the client to know that I hold absolutely no judgment about what's going to happen. And just like with any great integration facilitator, whether it's somato-emotional release, which I'm trained in, or you've got somatic experiencing, you've got John Barnes, you've got myofascial release. There's all sorts of different body works out there, and they're all fascinating and amazing in their own ways. But the basis of all of them is that you are holding space and that the person trusts you and you're listening to whatever it is that they need. And the less injection of your own expectation or what you think is supposed to happen or techniques or all those things, the less you try to interfere and the more you're just present, listening without judgment, pure curiosity, compassion, Gabor Mate, the more it just opens up to you like a flower, just like all those seeds just go, oh, we've been waiting for this. Boom, 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 blossom, 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 blossom.
And this is so important, especially for, your work is focused on leaders and probably healers and entrepreneurs. It's because it's something I've integrated more and more into the mastermind program, into my private coaching and the work I do, because it's helped me so much. Where when I started really doing the embodiment work and slowing down and listening and allowing, like you said, allowing that flower to just bloom, that was where everything just started taking off. And I was like, well, wait a second. I was originally taught that it was all the marketing, or like all the doing and like automations and emails. But then I was like, well, why is it then that the juice, like all the good stuff that has come through in my business that is then led to the expansion and, clients and money and leadership, why has all that come through this other work that you can't really explain away, not in like the old paradigm terms of like doing. And that's why I was like, okay, wait, there's something here that no one taught me. And I learned on my own, thank God. And I learned for my own healing and my own integration process because I knew something wasn't working. And it was like, I kind of reached a point where I was like, well, wait, it's like the definition of insanity. I'm doing the same thing over and over for the last 15 years or 20 years. And it's not really producing that big of a change. So maybe I should try the opposite, And then that's when everything started really taking off. But it involved, like you said, like counterintuitively slowing down, doing less, sleeping more, getting outside more. And I remember at one point, I even said to one of my old coaches, I said, I keep getting the download to just meditate more. And, she was a business coach trying to teach me all the strategies and marketing and doing and blah, 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 And she's like, yeah, okay, then just meditate more. It's really easy. Like just listen to whatever is coming through. And I was like, ooh, that was edgy. And that's, and this is like the kind of the new leadership that that you're doing, that a lot of people are doing, that, most of the mastermind clients are stepping into this place of like true embodied leadership, like being in this place of listening and healing and growth and really allowing what's emerging versus this like trying and pushing, which really doesn't serve them or the planet or their clients. But let's talk a little bit about your experience stepping into the mastermind. I'm curious, when you made this decision to join, I'm curious what inspired you? Like, why this group? Why me? Why this mastermind when there's like, the marketing dude out there or 1,000 other business coaches? Do you remember what kind of made you say like, oh yeah, this sounds great?
Well, you know that I'm an intuitive mentor. So intuition plays the biggest role in all of those things. Mm-hmm. But I was talking with my friend Stephanie, and we're on a conscious Zoom breathing group every morning. And I wasn't there every morning by any stretch. She was very dedicated soul. And we do Wim Hof every morning. And there was one day when she said, yeah, I'm actually like, I think that you might be interested. And we share every morning. So I must have shared something where she was like, I think you might be interested in checking out this woman that I'm thinking of working with as well. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to say yes. And I would like to get her information for sure. And it was when you were talking with me and we were going through things. Cause again, I'm very intuitive. So if somebody wasn't on the level or you could tell that they were faking it or not authentic, that just doesn't work for me. Right. And so it was something about your authenticity of just being real and actually like not judging yourself, but saying, oh, no, that's probably me because I often have this tendency to do this, but I'm working on that. And what I've learned is this. And I was like, oh, here's somebody who's actually doing her own work, because I can't work with somebody who isn't at that level of doing their own work and growing constantly, because that's like the golden edge. And that's where we're all looking to go to. And like you said, that place of going, you know what? There's this voice inside that says I have to meditate. And one of my coaching clients today, she's the same thing. She said, yeah, like I remember when you used to tell me to meditate, or when my body was telling me to meditate and I wouldn't do it. She said, you'd be happy to know that now I have to meditate. In fact, if I don't, then something feels off. And that's when like the scales have tipped. And the inner relationship is of equal importance to the outer relationship. And that's when you see the outer world shift as well, right? And so that is what you just described, Beth. And that's what you taught all the people in the mastermind, was that doing that inner work was just as important as the outer work, and that they were going to notice the shift, and they might not notice it at the same time. And you were good about describing that, because it doesn't always happen. Like there is some lag time. And also there's time where we have to grow in to actually trust that. And then, oh my goodness, look, it's all happening. It's all happening. What the heck? What just happened? Right? But we all blossom at different times, speaking of the blossoming, right? And so the importance of knowing that that blossoming is there, but it's not requiring you to do more. It's requiring you to tune in and listen and be present in you more. Because most people, if you ask them what their relationship is with themselves, they don't have one. They will mention their exercise levels or what they eat, but they don't have a relationship where they look at themselves in the mirror and say, I love you, Jules. And then they go, yeah, I love you too. Right? That they don't have that within them because they've never even known it's there to cultivate. But as soon as they know it's there to cultivate, and then as soon as they recognize they can lead through that cultivation, and that's what you were doing with all the leaders in your program, is actually showing them, I'm actually going through a lot of shit right now, right? This ceremony was like not properly timed. I don't know why I did that again, but it obviously had something to learn. And you know what? I've been dealing with this sickness and I didn't want to say anything, but I think you guys need to know, right? Like all of the things that were super authentic and real, where I was like, okay, this amazing human is growing at the same time as all these other amazing humans. And we're all in this together, but she's taking a leadership role of knowing that she has something to offer everyone by being a couple of steps ahead in this one process that we're looking up to her for. And we are all a couple of steps ahead in the process that some person is looking to us for. And we just need to discover in ourselves that we have that capability. But then we also need to recognize that once we recognize that in ourselves, then all of what she's teaching us is going to come out into play.
So beautifully said. And it's so funny because I don't want to throw him under the bus, but I'll never forget my ex-partner, who's a somatic therapist, had said to me years ago something about, well, you have to hold the magic for your clients and you can't really let them know that you can't let them know about you. But he was also trained as a therapist. It was very different than training as a business coach.
It's tricky therapist.
Yeah.
Training. And I went through it.
Yeah,
it's tricky.
It is tricky. And I get it because, it's weird because I even have a strange therapist relationship because my therapist is like kind of a peer and kind of a friend, but we are very good at like the lines of like, now we're in therapy. But it's funny because I was like, well, wait a second. That's interesting because I've worked with coaches that had that kind of guru mentality of like, just listen to everything I say and you'll be great. And then if I did something slightly different, I would actually be shamed, or I'd be like told that my business would fail. I mean, I was literally said things like this by one of my coaches. And I was like, this doesn't ring true for me. And so I started really exploring, like, what does it really mean to be like a new paradigm leader? Not the old paradigm of like, I'm better than you, you're paying me and I'm just going to tell you everything to do and do it. Because I saw that, especially in the coaching world. I mean, it still exists. It's a very like kind of old paradigm way of like the gurus and the marketing and then cookie cutter way of doing anything. But then what I started noticing is like, that doesn't really work for people because it's not your authenticity. And that's how we end up developing a bunch of cookie cutters that actually aren't producing, like they're not really
their own.
Yeah, they're not operating from their heart. They're not truly serving. They're kind of just spewing out like regurgitation. And what I try to teach to my clients, exactly what you say, is this level of like, look, I'm still learning, I'm still growing. And yes, here's how I can help you make it better. But my goal is to empower my clients to really like look inward and say like, how do you want to do it your way while taking, while working with me as the person that's going to help you make it more effective. And it's exactly when you said this, like going through this position, that's always that place where people, it happens every year and it's always between these certain amount of months, which is so funny. But people in the mastermind like get to that point of like, like I'm either going to make it or I'm not, or I just want to quit. Fuck this shit. I get everything. And it's like, okay, if we can learn to sit in that discomfort of transformation, of like like the flower. It's funny. I've been working with, I'm doing this whole chakra meditation thing, working with the flower emerging, but like, we have to compost and fertilize and water. And then sometimes we have to go in and like trim off the dead leaves and like, right now I'm sprouting some seeds and they're not growing as fast as I expected them to. And it's like, oh, I probably need to give it more soil or bigger. And that's the part where humanity has a hard time, right? Like sitting in that space of like, especially in entrepreneurship. And, the work you do is with leaders who are probably going through this. And I'm so glad you brought this up because it's so important to point out and to really name it in advance. Because I think the more your work, the more we can actually state this in advance to leaders, the more they can know like, oh, okay, now I'm just in that space and it's okay. It's nothing wrong. It just maybe means like chilling out for a little while or maybe sitting in the discomfort. But I'm so glad you have that reflection because I really I really believe we're entering this age of sovereignty, deep spiritual sovereignty of, yes, there's going to be leaders on earth and there always will be, but not having this like guru effect because now we're seeing left and right, like all our gurus, they're human. They all make mistakes. They all have sexual desires, like they have their shit too. Everybody has their traumas and no one's better than. But really to get to this place of running a sovereign business and being a sovereign leader and really being in that place of authenticity and truth.
And there's something, if you don't mind me adding to that one, that I'm teaching a cranial sacral for infants course next week. And so I just had a Zoom prerequisite meeting with these 8 amazing therapists who are going to be joining the course. And I said, this is exactly fitting with what you were talking about. I said, you guys all have your own amazing gifts and skill sets. I'm the instructor because I have a lot of experience working with babies, but you are going to be bringing all of your gifts to this experience, and we're all going to be learning from one another. So know that, I won't know things and you'll be able to share them, and we're all going to learn and grow together. And it's the same with the program as I say, let's transform together. Because after I've got 2 graduates through the program in the beginning, I was like, I've transformed with them and I've been able to share what I've learned in their transformation about myself and about the process to them. And then they were happy that they were able to contribute to my learning and growing, right? And so it makes for an entirely different environment when it is just all honored and equally, respected. And there's this reverence for one another that doesn't have to be hierarchical in any way. Yeah. So thank you for role modeling that as well. Yeah.
God, I love it. Wow. Cranial sacral for infants is deep. Wow.
The deepest, because babies are amazing.
Oh my God.
And so much wisdom, just power packed in those little bodies.
I want to hear a little bit about, you wrote a book and you've worked with, young people and you have kids yourself. I'm curious, like, how is this work intertwined into this kind of younger generation? Your book, Raise Future Leaders, right? I don't remember the tagline.
Yes. Oh, you got it. Raise Future Leaders, 3 simple steps to transformational parenting.
Ooh. Now, do you bring this into your program? Like, do you have people who are parents that are looking for, oh, there you go.
I, every once in a while, remember to bring it with you.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that. Because I actually think there's some gold in here.
Yes. It's funny because I wrote the book in 2020. And when you write a book, anybody who's written a book, you realize that later, when you read your own book, or for me, and I put it in audiobook form. So when I listen to my own book, I'm like, oh, gems. Why didn't I think of that before? And I'm like, oh, wait a second. I did think of that before I wrote the frickin' book. But I think I wrote it for me to come back to and to be reminded of often, because this idea of actually raising future leaders, that our kids are the best teachers that we could possibly have. And I actually had a conversation about it this morning, about how they're continuously bringing things to the forefront that we are our buttons, right? Our triggers. And we get the choice. We have that sovereign choice at that moment to decide if we're going to just go into default mode and do what our parents did to us and just continue the lineage, right? Ancestral traditions of the shame and blame or the abuse or the neglect or, whatever it is. And it might not be that extreme, or it might be in little bits, incrementally over time. We get the choice to do that or sit in the discomfort, like you said, Beth, just sit in the discomfort of going, ooh, man, I don't really like the idea of you hanging out with your boyfriend after school, but I do realize that this is my discomfort and not your discomfort. And you're, 13 now. And so let's, I'm not opposed to saying yes, but let's lay down some like ground rules as to how this is going to look. And, as a parent, the first time that happens, it's super uncomfortable, right? Or you go, no, we're not doing that. And you're only 13. Oh, all of the things, right? And so each and every time, you come about like your child refusing to wear their boots, you're coming up against resistance and discomfort in yourself. And that's where the growing is. And it's not to say I've been a master at doing that. I've continuously made many mistakes and failed attempts at growth, which is what parenting is all about. But it's deeply helped me to grow. And these kids are future leaders, but it's also the Raise Future Leaders book. I often say in there, I've had many people who have read it who do not have kids because they're raising their own inner children. And they're taking all of the techniques and all of the things I'm talking about and bringing them back to themselves and being the parent and reparenting themselves, which comes up in all of the natural work that comes up, whether it's psychedelics or, internal family systems, or it comes naturally in our bodies. So us bringing our awareness to it, and just like Hermetic wisdom, it's all about the will as well as the emotion and linking it all together by knowing that you have the intellect to choose. And so you get to choose using your intellect and your emotion, and all four of those, when they're combined together, are the master key to connection. And so it's all about connection, and it's all about learning from our inner children and from our kids. And again, not about any specific answers or solving problems or making sense of things, because our world is full of that. And I think we're ready to move on from that.
I was like, yeah, and it's not gotten us very far. That's a
not
good
getting
one.
us where we need to go.
That's a good quote. And I'm sitting here going, oh my God, I really wish my parents would have been willing to read a book like that. And honestly, yeah, I think you could republish that book and just publish it for all of humanity, because it's true. It's interesting. I had a difficult conversation just the other day where I had to, state how I was impacted and, kind of lay down a little boundary and explain why I'd cut off this friendship. But then at the end, or when I stated that little 5 minutes, whatever, I was like, and I take responsibility for how I felt, and I was probably oversensitive, and I this and this, and I know you were going through a lot, and we're all really busy people. It's to just have that awareness of more than just your trigger, I grew up in that household where it was either you do it my way or you kicked out. And then the opposite spectrum was a massive bypassing and pretending it just didn't exist. So it was one or the other, which, by the way, extreme mixed messages of super strict versus I actually don't give a shit. I'm going to pretend this doesn't exist. And either way,
talk about confusing.
Yeah, I know. I was like, well, one would have been better. But either way, it was okay, there's no real connection or communication here. And it's also just, wounded parents projecting their stuff onto their kids without taking any responsibility for themselves. And you're right. It's it hasn't really been working. And I think it's time we move on. And thank God there's now, more people waking up and on this path of okay, maybe I don't want to screw up my kids, or maybe I want to try better. just try a little bit better than being the kind of parent that maybe they had, not to say like, I love my parents, they did their best, but just to put in that conscious energy of like, how can I be a better leader for my family and for the world too? Anyways, Jules, let's talk about, your program so people know a little bit more about it. Also, what you have coming up, what you offer. And please share away.
Yes, I'd love to. So my 6 months, I call it my intuitive mentorship and embodied leadership program. It's for leaders of all ages, stages, as long as you acknowledge yourself as a leader and are willing to commit. I recognize through Beth's program how important it is to actually invest in that commitment to yourself. Because when you invest in the commitment to yourself, that's the commitment that you want. And the magic of this program is that I see these people twice a month. And then in between, what I will do is I will send them a little voice memo of the commitments they made to themselves. So not things that I want them to do, but things that came up really clear in their session that their body needed for them, so that they can be reminded in their own words and with their own images and all of the things that are resonant, so that it's a continual, we call them containers, and I do imagine it as a container. It's like you're in the container and I'm holding the walls of the container. And even if you get really skittish and scared and uncomfortable, like we just talked about, because growth gets uncomfortable. You get to a certain place and you're used to going there. And as soon as you start to get over that edge, you go, okay, I just want out. No, I don't want this anymore. No, this is too scary. Maybe I wasn't ready. No, I don't think I'm good enough for this. No, I say, no matter what, once you've committed, I'm going to keep holding you there. And I'm going to keep holding you there because you want me to, right? Because you've committed to this. And it's going to be a little bit scary. It's going to be a little bit uncomfortable. But it's because I'm there holding you and continuously reflecting back your awesomeness to you and all the messages that your body gave you when you were at your absolute clearest, that are going to hit you and pierce you in the heart and through your core. Those are going to be what keep holding you to the point that you can grow farther than you've ever grown before. That's the transformation, is we can't easily transform on our own without help, because that's not how humans are meant to do it. Like, we all need help. And so I used to just treat people one-on-one and randomly here, there, maybe every couple months, maybe every month. But actually having people commit to a transformation has been wild. And these people who have come out of it already, they both said the same thing, the first two that graduated. And it was like, that was amazing. Both the same thing. They said, I can't even recognize myself from 6 months ago. And I feel light years ahead of where I was 6 months ago. And they both said that like at different times. And I was like, what are the chances that you would say the exact same thing? Okay, there's something there and something, so I would remember it, obviously. So that has been transformational for me, to remember that me holding that space as a leader has that potency to take them further than they've ever been able to take themselves before, and remember their awesomeness to the degree that it's tipped. They cannot remember it anymore. They can't possibly go back to the way they were before. And that's transformation, is that you've already shifted too far. You can't go back. It's scary and awesome all at the same time, right? And as far as group teachings, I'm continuously working on groups, because I know that is where I'm going to make the biggest impact. I'm still blossoming in that degree, because I don't know exactly how it's going to come through, but it does feel like it's going to be about supporting parents as they're working with their teens or kids, but also not about solving, not about like fixing or techniques. It'll be about sharing, and that group collective sharing, and us all actually looking back in at ourselves, at what's coming up in us, because that's where the transformation happens. And I know when it comes to group work, like, it's so much more powerful because everybody is having that shared experience together. And I know it will impact all of the kids and all the inner children and everybody in connection. So I'm still playing with that, but I do look forward to being able to share it soon. So I did just create a website. And so it's Jules Hare.ca, Jules Hare like the rabbit.ca. And you can find everything there. And I would be happy to share the audiobook, but also my books are available on Amazon. Raise Future Leaders, 3 Simple Steps to Transformational Parenting. So you can find me, you can reach out to me if it speaks to you. And obviously I have a clarity call so that we can see if we work well together, or maybe there's someone else that like screams out to me like, oh, you need to work with Marin or Beth, or, oh, I've got a friend that would be a really good fit for you actually. Because I'm not about like fixing or solving. I'm about holding space for those committed leaders who are truly ready to step in to their power and to actually commit to themselves and this amazing relationship that they might not, that's usually whispering to them. Maybe it's screaming. Maybe there's something like going on in their body that's like catalyzing it. But regardless, if it feels like a good fit, we can take you to that transformational level of awesomeness that you can't even fathom right now.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing, Jules. I'm like, this is so exciting. I think this is so what the world needs. And I really appreciate you're doing this work. And it was such an honor to have you in the mastermind and to see your growth and where you're going. And thank you so much. I'm so proud of you because you really showed up so fully. And, all you do is, like you said, you commit. All you have to do is commit, you get results. It's very simple, commit, get out of your way, allow, and voila.
You make it sound so easy. Oh, no big deal. And I'm thankful to be here with you today and sharing with all of you. And there was like that little bit of nervousness because I was like, oh, that's like the biggest podcast that I've done so far, because she's interviewed like Charles Eisenstein, and I love that guy, all those characters. And so, yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show. And I look forward to connecting with anybody who this feels like it resonates to, invite in that connection.
I cannot recommend you enough, but we'll have all your links here. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Much love.
I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you're feeling inspired, I'd appreciate it if you showed your love with a review. And check out my YouTube channel where you can find the video version of this podcast. You can also head to bethaweinstein.com to learn more about me and grab my free business growth trainings. Remember, you carry your own unique medicine, and your medicine is what we need for these times.